Before we can solve statics problems, we first have to understand the basic quantities used in statics, which are scalars and vectors. Scalars are physical quantities that have no associated direction and can only be described by a positive, a negative number, or even zero. Scalars, examples of scalars are mass, time, temperature, and length. Vectors, on the other hand, have both a magnitude and a direction. In the case of the magnitude, it can only be expressed as a positive number. The vector direction has to be described typically with a coordinate system. One that you might be familiar with would be a Cartesian coordinate system. Examples of vectors are acceleration, velocity, and force. When a vector is written down, it is noted as either a letter, such as force with a arrowhead over it, or a line over it, or as bold. While in a scalar, if it is describing just a scalar property, it is going to be represented by a non-bold letter. Graphically, a vector is described using a line with an arrowhead. The line portion is called the tail and represents the magnitude of the vector. The longer the line, the larger the magnitude of either the force. The arrowhead or tip represents the sense or direction. The dashed line represents what we call the line of action, as the vector can move up and down this line of action but cannot move off of it. It represents the area in which it applies, and its sense and direction do not change but can move up and down. An example of this is, let's say we have an object we're pushing on, okay, and it is, again, in statics, non-deformable. It's rigid. So the object doesn't care if it's being pushed or pulled, and as long as this vector operates along that line of action, then it is the same. Another way to describe the orientation is the angle. This angle represents its relationship with a coordinate system. So if an object is moving in a positive direction on the coordinate system, say in the xy direction, it is a positive direction. If, say, an object was to be, or a force was to describe the weight of an object, the direction would be down.